This is the iPhone 17 Pro, an $1,100 device with three 48 megapixel cameras, open gate RAW and Apple log footage, and it can FaceTime your grandma. And this is the Fujifilm XM5, a 24 megapixel interchangeable lens camera boasting Fujifilm's beautiful photography and 6.2K open gate log footage internally, all for $900 USD. But for this comparison, is the cheaper Fujifilm actually better than the insane new iPhone 17 Pro camera tech? Let's find out. This video is sponsored by my friends at FrameSet, which is my go-to resource for high quality frames that help me plan and pre-produce all of my work. And the best part is FrameSet does not break the bank. It's very affordable, and I've actually been using them since before they sponsored my channel. So here's how it works. Go to FrameSet's website, type in a prompt, and FrameSet will instantly snag inspiration frames for your next project. Or you can get hyper specific with how you search by selecting any color, aspect ratio, gender, color temperature, lens type, and so much more to get exactly the frames you need for your next storyboard, pitch deck, or whatever the heck else you need frames for. I also love that with the new updates to their site, they have GIF files for some frames, so if you want motion included, you can have that. It's nice to see some cool camera moves, but more than that, you can also put these GIF files into your editor and essentially create a pre-produced edit of your project that has motion. Then you know exactly what you're getting, and if you want to show your client, they also know exactly what you're getting, which takes the guesswork and the complicated communication out of your work. It's the best. So if you want to take your pre-production skills to the next level and just set yourself up for success, why stress out if you don't have to? Check out FrameSet today using the top link in the description. It's affordable, and I promise you it's 100% worth it. So thank you, FrameSet, for the sponsor. Now let's talk about some other cool stuff. Okay, now let's quickly talk about price and pocketability. Just puke. First, let's go over price. Let's say you get the iPhone 17 Pro, smallest amount of storage, not the max. It's about $1,100, which is not a cheap price. But we have to mention the fact that most of us are on some sort of phone plan, and we either get like an upgrade discount or some sort of deal. So automatically, that's kind of a pretty amazing point to give to the iPhone, is if you're smart with the way you upgrade phones every few years, most likely you're not really spending extra money. Now for the XM5, this is a $1 USD camera, which in terms of cameras is actually very affordable. I'm honestly so impressed with how small they managed to get the XM5. Now, one reason I think they were able to get it this teeny tiny is because they chopped off the EVF. There's no viewfinder, very sad. I love shooting photos and video with a viewfinder, but I can't really complain at how freaking small this thing is. I mean, look at this. Body alone, it can easily slip into my pocket. Once you put on even a small lens, it definitely gives you the bulge effect, which some men really need and desire, which is fine, but it's not discreet. Unless you have like baggy cargos on or like a hoodie or a coat or something like that. I have in my pocket a hamburger. Now here's what it looks like with this little Viltrox lens on it, and this is a pretty dang low profile package. Now my current iPhone rig is a little bit bulky because I have a small rig cage on it, a small rig ND filter setup, a little wonky USB-C reader velcroed onto the back so I can record to an SD card and not deal with airdropping huge files. And I have an Arca Swiss on here so I can put it on a tripod, but you can easily disassemble this. There you go. It's so easy to go from an actual pocket phone camera that still does all those things in the Blackmagic app to a more professional build. If you add a couple accessories, if you want that nice natural motion blur, you're gonna need an ND filter. And I do that by using this. And actually, you don't even need the cage for the ND filter. Then the ND filter just clicks on and slides into place like that. And it's magnetic, so you can take it off in a pinch, put it back on. If you're done, take it off. Okay, so we know that both cameras are small, compact, and relatively pocketable, but how do they actually feel to go out and shoot with? The 17 Pro is just so easy to whip out of your pocket and start shooting immediately because it's all muscle memory, just taking our phone out of our pocket.
Way too much during the day.
Shooting vertically feels awesome with very little friction to going from pocket to amazing photos or videos. And the screen is super bright with vibrant, accurate colors. No complaints there. But shooting horizontal is a little bit different. especially if you're trying to get low angles. You kind of got to hunchback it and get some triple chins going on just to crank out a decent low angle photo. Whereas the XM5 feels really great in the hand no matter what position you're shooting in because it's a traditional camera body. So you get that proper camera feeling experience with a nice grip, and unfortunately it doesn't have an EVF on the camera, but you do have a flip screen, making low angles, high angles, whatever, very easy to accomplish. And with a camera body like the XM5, you're just less worried about it slipping out of your hand, which still happens to me quite a bit with my iPhone, even though I have a case on it. And one of my favorite parts of a camera's feel is the shutter sound. I mean, there's something satisfying about that shutter. I don't know if you can hear this. That's something you can't get from an iPhone. Now let's talk raw photos. I'm not gonna dive into the megapixel difference with these cameras because honestly, it won't matter very much at all. I'm more concerned with the overall quality and vibe and flexibility of the raw files. I'm happy to report that both of these cameras produce amazing raw images with plenty of flexibility, although I do feel like in a lot of instances I got better dynamic range in the highlights out of the iPhone specifically. I felt like I could recover a bit more information, but keep in mind I was just firing from the hip with both cameras, and the iPhone is just incredible at automatic exposure, whereas the Fuji will give you better results if you're actually manually dialing in the settings, but I was using auto for that as well, just to compare. But the Fujifilm does have an advantage in this area of photography simply because you can put interchangeable lenses on it. It's designed for that. I know you can technically do that with iPhones too, but we're just going basic packages here. But adding lenses to the Fuji will give you totally different characteristics and feel, flares, focal length, styles, and more depth of field if you want that kind of blurry background style as well. Obviously, you can play with portrait mode with iPhone to get that blurry background, or you can just shoot in RAW with the regular lenses, and then in post in something like Lightroom, you can actually add lens blur and customize it to get a different effect. If you want it to look more vintagey or more sharp and clean, you can do that with just a couple clicks. When it comes to JPEG photography, I've been very obsessed with this lately, but both of these platforms offer some pretty awesome options. One thing Fujifilm is absolutely famous for is their film simulations. And all that means is if you don't want to shoot in RAW, you can shoot in JPEG or RAW plus JPEG. And in those JPEG files, you can bake in some film looks. Fuji's famous for their film stocks, but they've put that in their digital cameras as essentially like high quality presets or filters, but they're just beautiful. So you get a wide range of selections, and what makes the XM5 completely different than past Fuji cameras is a film simulation dial on top to easily swipe through those different filters, and it just makes it so much more fun because you can easily just preview what you're getting, change the preset, find what you like, snap a photo. Furthermore, you can customize the presets by adding grain or color chrome effects, fully tweaking the curves to get contrast where you want it, more of a faded look or a super punchy look, all in camera, and then you can bake in grain, heavy grain, or no grain. Shout out Heavy Rain, gamers, love you. And one last thing with the Fujifilm Sims is you can bake them into your video files as well. So if you don't want to shoot in log, you can choose a film simulation, a beautiful preset that just bakes into your footage, whether it's 4K, 60, or 6.2K open gate, whatever you're shooting, you can bake your film look into it. That's still an awesome option for quick turnaround videos that look beautiful. Now, what about iPhone and JPEG photography? Are there any solid options? Obviously, you can use the native camera app and shoot JPEGs, but you're not really gonna get any super inspiring looks. I mean, you can get some with their built-in presets that are okay, but I prefer using third-party apps. Couple that I've been liking is the Visco Capture app. There's awesome options for built-in presets there that you can kind of dial back the intensity so it doesn't look as much like an Instagram filter. But there are a couple of big quirks with Visco Capture. One is the delay in the shutter when you're taking photos. Sometimes it just takes an extra second. It's kind of annoying. And also there's no grain options right now, which is a huge miss. They do have bloom and halation, which are fun to play with, but they need to add internal grain ASAP. Then you have the Leica Lux app, which costs $70 per year and basically transforms your iPhone into a professional camera with different Leica presets, built-in grain, the option to shoot JPEG natively or RAW. It's a freaking amazing app, and I'm considering pulling the trigger on it, but there are definitely options that rival Fuji and real cameras. I'm out here testing Leica Lux more now, and just want to let you guys know that You actually can use this app for free. You just don't get access to all of the cool profiles and features and the fancy like lens modes that this app offers. But even the free version is actually really solid. So I've kind of converted to using Leica Lux on my camera button and then the Blackmagic app on my action button, so I can quickly access photo and video on this phone. It works really well, and it's just awesome for documenting my son who's playing in the sticks. What you doing, boy? Yeah. You say hi? Hi. Love you. Now let's go over some quick video options before we dive deep into image quality and all those shenanigans. With this little guy, we're talking 6.2K open gate footage in f-log2. It has the Fuji X-T4 sensor. The sensor in this camera is absolutely gorgeous. Shout out to the X-Trans 4. It also does Cinema 4K up to 60 frames per second in H.265 as well, which is really freaking awesome that this camera packs so much horsepower. And with the iPhone 17 Pro, what's insane about this camera is you get so many different focal lengths in one tiny package. Anything from 13 millimeters to 200 millimeters equivalent in one little rectangle. It's freaking insane. And you get Apple Log 2, which looks absolutely beautiful. I think out of any of the log profiles I've tested, this gives me my favorite skin tones I've ever had. You can also do open gate footage on this camera. You can do open gate ProRes RAW. You can do ProRes 422, depending on what app you're using, 422 HQ. And you can do 4K up to 120 frames per second. Just the fact that that's all in a package this tiny, and it can actually get tinier, is pretty crazy. Real talk, how do these cameras stack up in terms of overall video image quality? It's kind of wild how close it actually is. Both Apple Log 2 on the iPhone 17 Pro and F-Log 2 in newer Fuji cameras both produce high dynamic range, clean, beautifully vibrant colors, and great looking images overall. You really can't go wrong if you know what you're doing with a camera. And both options will give you plenty of flexibility in post, and the iPhone might actually have a little bit of an edge if you're shooting in ProRes RAW, which does require external storage, like my goofy little Velcroed SD card setup. But then you can change the ISO in post, completely tweak everything as if you were changing the settings in the camera itself. And I personally like to shoot on the iPhone with the Blackmagic camera app because you get way more customization and control. And honestly, it doesn't slow down your shooting process once you get the hang of it. It can look overwhelming at first with all the different settings in the UI, but it's not that bad at all. And you can also just switch to automatic exposure in Blackmagic as well if you want it quick and dirty. But a lot of the times with the iPhone, I just stick to either ProRes LT or 422 or sometimes HQ for really high quality, and I get plenty of information and great looking video images from those codecs, and it saves me storage versus the native camera app, which creates huge files, and ProRes RAW, which also creates big files. But we have to talk about lenses and how they affect both of these cameras. With the XM5, you can choose whatever lens you want to get a vintage look or super clean, modern, sharp look. But the fact that the iPhone has all of its lenses just built into the little camera plateau is extremely convenient. You can get any look from 13 millimeters to 200 millimeters and get really nice images overall. And it's a very tiny package that you don't have to carry around extra stuff if you don't want to. Now that being said, the 24mm standard 1x camera on the iPhone 17 Pro is by far the cleanest and best looking image if you just want to go for pure quality. At the end of the day, Apple and Fuji are pretty easy to match to each other. They both give you great colors and very similar image quality. Obviously, you're gonna get like depth of field differences with the Fuji. You can get depth of field on the iPhone as long as you're closer to your subject. Rest assured, you'll get great images out of each. But now let's dive a little bit deeper into video stuff. I'm really excited about this chapter, which is low light video. I was very curious to see how these two brands of cameras would stack up against each other, especially because the iPhone has really tiny sensors and the Fuji has a Super 35 sensor, which is actually very large in terms of the whole spectrum of sensor sizes. Okay, so with the iPhone, I learned very quickly in these low light, terrifying test shots where it was suction cupped to the hood of my car that the 24mm lens, which is a 1.8 aperture, is the cleanest and best option for low light. The 13mm has a lower f-stop, I think it's like 2.2 or something like that, meaning you have to either push the ISO higher if you're just using available light or add more light to your scene, which I didn't have the ability to do because I'm driving around at night. So you can see some kind of blotchy noise when I'm pushing the ISO up around 3200 or 4000. And that's why the XM5 has a clear advantage with low light. First of all, you can use faster lenses because you can swap lenses. I think we're starting to understand that's the superpower of interchangeable lenses. You can change them. But also, because your sensor is bigger on the Fuji compared to the tiny ones in iPhones, you're just gonna be absorbing more light on that sensor, which is also helping reduce the appearance of noise. And it's a 6.2K image if you're shooting an open gate. So the more resolution, the smaller the noise will look as well. So it's not as much of an issue on the Fuji. I was pushing up in the 4,000 to 5,000 range, which didn't look bad at all. But with these compact cameras, we have to talk about stabilization. It's very important with small cameras because the lighter a camera is, the easier it is to get shaky footage. And this is where the XM5 was a bit of a letdown for me. Now, if you use an OIS lens, which just has optical image stabilization in the lens, it does work well on the XM5 because you get a stabilized image and you can control that in the camera settings. But if you want to use fun manual lenses, vintage lenses, or honestly just a lot of modern lenses, they don't have OIS, so you have to use the digital stabilization in the XM5, which honestly just doesn't really stabilize very well at all. It's probably best if you're just doing handheld shooting, standing in one place and not running around or doing crazy stuff like mounting it to an e-bike, expecting to get smooth footage. The iPhone, on the other hand, is a completely different story with stabilization. Specifically using the Blackmagic app, you get full control. You can turn it off to get that shaky handheld look if you want. You can do standard, cinematic, and action stabilization modes. I typically use either standard or cinematic, and they both look fantastic. It looks like Ibis. It's so smooth. You still have to be careful with how you hold your phone, but if you know how to hold it steady and walk pretty smooth, the results are borderline gimbal-like. It's freaking insane. I love it. Anytime you're doing hard mounting shots also, you want to make sure that you don't have stabilization turned on because then it will perfectly follow whatever object you're mounted to and it just looks so much more visceral. It looks awesome. So for stabilization, it's not even close. The iPhone destroys the XM5. And if you want to keep your camera package as small as possible, here's what the internal mics sound like. This is an internal microphone test on the XM5 because I'm just curious, what do the actual just on-camera microphones sound like if you want the smallest camera package possible versus the iPhone? And this is an audio test on the iPhone 17 Pro, just internal automatic settings for the microphones versus the Fuji XM5. What's the verdict here? I think most of us would probably prefer the images for photography and video out of the Fujifilm sensor. But this iPhone versus Fuji comparison isn't quite that black and white. First off, you probably already have an iPhone and it can so easily come with you in your pocket that it makes it so convenient to always have on you to get those shots of your daily life, whatever you want to film or photograph, and still get amazing quality, but with so much convenience. But using a Fuji camera is so tactile and enjoyable for those of us who don't want to shoot on our phones. I totally get that. I'm leaning more and more into my phone for daily stuff, but it gives you interchangeable lenses so you can custom tailor the image to your liking right in camera, so you have to do less in post, which I can totally side with those people who want to shoot like that. But let's get a little bit more nuanced in our verdict here. What if I told you you don't have to choose? Let's say you just start with the phone and you end up using it and liking it for photo and video, or whichever you prefer, then you don't really have to go any further than that. But you're probably already gonna have a phone in your pocket anyway, so why not have one that's pretty insane? And honestly, if you have a 15 or 16 already, you probably don't have to upgrade to the camera stuff for this one, unless you really want the new selfie camera, but that's kind of a wild reason to upgrade. But if you do want something more than a phone, then something like the Fuji XM5 or other Fujifilm cameras is a really nice compact option. So I can't tell you what to do, but hopefully I've laid out enough information here where you can make some good decisions. Or hopefully you just had a good time. I hope you did. So make sure to text me when you get home so I know you're safe, and please watch out for deer. Follow me on Instagram for short and dumb stuff like this, and if you want your names over here, please feel free to join me on Patreon. It would mean the world to have you guys supporting, so I can do more stuff like this. And remember that you guys are loved much more than you might even know, all right? I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.